Ranking Championship strikers by how many goals I think they'll score this season. This should be a fun one. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Now this is going to be a part 1 where we pick out one Championship striker from each club, and I'm going to be putting them into a tier list based on how many goals I realistically see them all scoring. Now if you'd like to see a part 2 to this video where we go over another one of the strikers from your club, then get this video to 450 likes. But I'm excited to get into this one. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. The strikers that we're mentioning in today's video, how many goals do you realistically see them scoring? As always, if you do go into enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around for some regular Championship content. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. So let's start things out with Barnsley's Coley Woodrow. He is already off the mark this season for a goal, scoring in Barnsley's 2-2 draw with QPR. And over the last couple seasons in the Championship, he's been pretty consistent in terms of his goal output. Last season he scored 13 goals. The season before that he scored 14. I wouldn't be surprised to see him getting in and around those numbers again. Now the other thing to take into consideration with Woodrow is that he can play a little bit deeper at times. You know, he's not always going to be used as that sort of out and out number 9. You know, he can drop a little bit deeper into midfield, but in terms of a goal output this season, I see him getting 10 to 14 goals. Next up, let's go for Birmingham new boy Troy Deeney. Birmingham fans, let me know down below how many goals do you realistically see Deeney scoring this season. He's quite an interesting one because, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how much he gets used this season, if there is a potential partnership that could strike up between him and Mitrovic, or all of them two a little bit too similar and it'll sort of be a case of one or the other. Last season for Watford he scored 7 goals, although the majority of those did come from the penalty spot, but I'm in no doubt that if Birmingham are getting any penalties this season, then Deeney is slamming them into the back of the net. He's 33 now, so I don't expect him to be playing week in, week out, but I do think he'll chip in with a few goals here and there. In terms of his goal output, I see him getting 5 to 9 goals this season. I think that'll be realistic for him. Next up, let's go for Blackburn Rovers' Ben Brereton Diaz. Now, he can play in a few positions, to be fair. He can play pretty much anywhere across that forward 3, either on the left or the right or up front, and he's played actually in all of those positions so far this season, but I've got a feeling this has the makings of what could be a really good year for him. You know, Armstrong's no longer there. It's perceived that he's going to be the main man for them in terms of the goal output this year. He's already got off to a flyer of a start to the season, scoring 3 goals already, and I think he could get into those sort of 15 to 19 goal mark. I really think he'll have a good year for Blackburn. Next up, let's go for Blackpool's Jerry Yates. He's only got 1 goal to his name so far this season, which does coincidentally match his best goal scoring record at this level previously, but last season in League One was his most prolific to date with Blackpool, as he scored 21 goals. With Yates, it's all about getting in the service. At the moment with Blackpool, he's only averaging 1 shot per 90, which isn't ideal. You know, in an ideal situation you want your striker to be getting 3-4 chances a game to really sort of build up that confidence and get into the groove. I do feel like it'll happen eventually for Yates, but it might be a bit of a slow build of a season. In terms of an output, I see him getting like 5 to 9 goals this season. I think that will be realistic for him. If he gets into double figures, that will be an excellent year. Next up then, let's go for Bournemouth's Dom Solanke. Now, in comparison to Jerry Yates, Solanke is averaging considerably more shots per 90. He's having over 3 shots a game at the moment, and that is being reflected in the goals that he's scored. He's got 3 goals in 5 matches, and if he manages to sort of continue that ratio over the season, then it's going to be a pretty good year for the forward. I expect him to go maybe a little bit better than last year, where he scored 15 goals, and I'm going to back him to be in that sort of 15 to 19 goal category. I think he may just fall a little bit shy of 20 goals this season, but still would be a good year. Next up, let's go for Bristol City's Chris Martin. He's already got 2 goals this season, and so he's already matched his tally from last year. Chris Martin is more than goals though. He's more about sort of bringing others into play. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him picking up, for example, more assists this season than he brings in goals. You know, Vyman especially at the moment is looking like he might be Bristol City's main output this season in terms of goal scoring, but Chris Martin will still chip in with a fair few this season, and he's another one who I see probably being in that sort of like 5 to 9 goal category. Next up, let's go for Cardiff's Kiefer Moore. Now, he was brilliant last season, and if you've been watching the channel for long enough, you'll know how much of a Kiefer Moore fan I am. I'm glad that he stayed with Cardiff in the end, as there was that bit of interest from Wolves towards the end of the window, and I think he'll be in for another good season this time around. But will he quite reach that 20 goal mark this season? It's up for debate. If he stays injury free and healthy, then there's no reason why he can't. The only way I'm thinking he may fall a little bit shy of that this season is if per se something was to happen to like a Ryan Giles, who's been instrumental in creating the chances for Cardiff so far this season, where else is that sort of creativity going to come from in the midfield? So for Keith Moore, I think he'll be very good this season once again, but he may just fall shy of that 20 goal mark, so I'll have him in that second category. Next up, let's go for Coventry's Viktor Gyökeres. Now I was a little bit sort of mixed on this signing when it went through. Obviously he was on loan there last season, had a brief loan spell with Swansea as well, which didn't really go to plan. And I was a little bit hit and miss on him, to be completely honest with you, but from what I've seen from him so far this season, I think he's looked alright. Now I do think that Coventry, in terms of the goals they scored this season, will sort of be evenly spread out in the final third from the players they have in those positions. But Gyökeres can get himself into some decent positions and will be a useful player for them this season, who I see chipping in with probably about that 5 to 9 goal mark. If he gets into double figures, that'll be an excellent season for him. Next up, let's go for Derby's Callum Richards. Now I think it's fair to say that he proved the majority of people wrong last season with how good he actually was at leading the line for Derby. The one thing to take into consideration with this one is he is currently injured, and I believe he's expected to be out up until around December, could potentially be even longer than that, and so, you know, a 35-year-old recovering from what I believe to be an Achilles injury at the moment, isn't it? It's not an ideal situation to be in, and with that context sort of taken into consideration, I might have to throw him in that 0 to 4 goal category just because of that injury. Had that not happened, then I'd be bumping him up a tier. Next up, let's go for the main man, Mitrovic. Now, I've already said that I don't think there will be many people who score over 20 goals this season. Certainly not like we had it last season when we had, you know, an abundance of these attackers who, I mean, at one point we're looking like we'll get quite a few that were scoring over 30 with like Ivan Toney, Adam Armstrong, Timu Pukki, Keith Moore, Lucas Jown, things like that. This season, I think it's going to be a little bit more selective of the players who are scoring over 20 goals, but if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Mitrovic this season, let's be real. And if he doesn't score over 20 goals this season, I sort of feel like it's been a bit of a failure with him with all the talent that he's got around him. So yeah, no questions asked, it's 20 plus, isn't it? After that, we'll go for Huddersfield's Josh Caroman. Now, I don't really know whether to classify him as a striker or not. I think he probably plays his best football off that left-hand side, but he will be used as a striker throughout the season for Huddersfield. You know, it's either as a striker or as that sort of left forward that he will be used. So I'm classing him as a striker for the sake of today's video. Now, his injury really sort of hampered the amount of goals he scored last season. If he manages to keep himself fit this season, then I see no reason why he can't be getting into double figures. So I'm going to put him into that category, 10 to 14 for me. Next up, let's go for Hull City's Josh Mcginnis. Now, he has already got off the mark this season on the opening day against my club, Preston North End. He's also, as we discussed on a previous video, been caught offside more times, and significantly more times than any other Championship player so far this season. So if he's going to be within the goals, he first of all needs to learn the offside rule. We've mentioned it a few times. I think that Hull's goals will more than less come from those sort of wide forwards that they're playing with, and whoever plays at that as that striker will maybe be chipping in with more assists than they do get goals in the end. But as a final number, I probably do see him being in and around that sort of 5 to 9 goal mark. Next up, let's go for Luton Town's Elijah Adebayo. Now, last season his goals to game ratio was absolutely brilliant for them. In 24 starts he scored 10 goals, which is some return considering this was his first time playing in the Championship. So far this season he's got 1 goal in his opening 5 matches, and I think that once he properly gets up and going for this season, there's no reason why he isn't Luton's main man going forward again this season, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be getting into double figures again, so I'll go ahead and back him to do that. After that, let's go for Middlesbrough's Pizzu. Now, so far this season he has been the main man to lead Borough's front line, but with a bit of the business that they did towards the end of the window, we'll wait and see how Neil Warnock shapes this team up in a few weeks' time. Now, he will chip in with both goals and assists this season. He's already got 2 to his name with Middlesbrough. Last season for Wickham he scored 6 goals. I do see him going better than that this season, but Pizzu brings more than just goals to the side, if that makes sense. And from a purely goal scoring output, I'd probably play it safe and go around 5 to 9, although he could just about sneak into double figures. I think it'd be very close between those 2 categories. After that, we'll go for Benik Afobe. Now, Millwall fans will be hoping that he will finally be the man in terms of a striker to be getting into double figures this season. I think come the end of the year, we're probably all expecting Jed Wallace to be their top scorer again, but can Afobe sort of supplement those goals with enough of his own. The last time he actually got into double figures was all the way back in 2014/15, so we do like to speak about a phobia like he sort of like guaranteed goals and stuff like that, but it has been a fair while since he has been sort of like prolific at this level. Now he's looked alright so far for Millwall. In the 5 matches he's played, he's already scored 2 goals, which is a decent start, but he needs to go ahead and maintain that now, and Millwall need to make sure that they get a consistent flurry of chances coming his way. I think he'd be another one that I'd probably be tempted to put in that 5 to 9 goal category. If he gets into double figures once again, it's been an excellent season for him. One team who definitely needs to make sure that they're creating chances for their strikers from now on is Nottingham Forest. For their striker, we'll go with Lyle Taylor. And I don't really think I can justify putting him much higher than like the bottom 2 categories at the moment, with how sort of limp Forest have been looking in the final third. If something was to change and something finally clicks, then who knows really, but obviously we all know about Forest's desire to go and get in another striker in this summer transfer window. That didn't materialise in the end, so it's more than likely that they might end up going for someone in January, which may affect the sort of minutes that Lyle Taylor's playing this season. I think it's realistic for him to be scoring probably from that 5 to 9 goal mark. Next up, let's go for Peterborough's Johnson Clark-Harris. Now, he's yet to get off the mark this season in terms of goals, but he has chipped in with a couple of assists. I also don't think that he's been completely match fit so far this season, especially when Peterborough came to Deepdale. Sort of the last 20 minutes of that match, Clark-Harris really looked like he was huffing and puffing. So once he does get himself back up to full fitness, I think this could be a situation where as soon as that first goal goes in for him, he just completely takes off at this level. I'm going to back him, you know, to get into double figures this season, because I think that when the penny finally drops, he could really explode. So I'll go for 10 to 14 for Clark-Harris. Next up, let's go for Preston North End's Emil Rees. Now, on deadline day, we didn't bring in a recognised striker, although Connor Wickham is still training with us, so that is still a bit of a possibility, but I do feel as if most of our attacking hopes this season are being pinned on Emil Rees. And to be fair to him, he has got off to an excellent start to the season. 2 goals in the Championship and 3 goals in the League Cup already. He looks like a player who's playing with confidence. He's already scored more goals than he did in the entirety of last season, which I felt like was a bit of an adaptation period for him. And I think with how well he started this season already, he's definitely going to be targeting double figures this season. So I'm going to back him for 10 to 14 goals this time round. Next up then for QPR, we'll go for Lyndon Dykes, as he's currently their top scorer. Obviously a few QPR strikers who I could have picked out for today's video, but we'll go with Lyndon Dykes. In 3 starts and 1 appearances from the bench, he's already scored 3 goals this season. First half of last season, I seriously wasn't convinced by Dykes at all, but he really has seemed to change around his fortunes at QPR after having those few months to adapt to Championship life. He actually looks like a real handful now for Championship defenders. Do you know what? I'm going to back him for double figures this season as well, 10 to 14 goals. After that, we'll go for Reading's George Puskas. Now, a lot of emphasis is going to be placed on his shoulders at the moment with the injury that Lucas Jow's picked up. I believe that Jow could be out too, even as far as next year, which is a real blow for Reading. So their only other really like senior striker in the squad is Puskas at the moment. He's yet to get off the mark in terms of goals, but he's a player who comes alive in sort of small bursts throughout the season, isn't he? You know, I remember that hat-trick he scored, for example, away at Wigan. When he first arrived at Reading, he scored that unbelievable goal, didn't he? But then he's never really quite been able to consistently do it. So maybe now that he will be given a consistent run of games in the team, you know, having John Swift providing chances for him and things like that, the penny could drop, but I think there'll be one too many runs of inconsistency. So for Puskas, I think I'm going to go 5 to 9 goals. After that, we'll go for Sheffield United's Billy Sharp, as he's their only player to score in the league so far this season, which is absolutely crazy. Obviously, Sheffield United have an array of strikers, but they may be reliant on the veteran man once again. Now, we've touched on this a few times with Sheffield United recently. I think they've got a lot of talent in the final third, but no one particularly who completely fits the system. Billy Sharp will be a man who comes in, you know, now and again throughout the season. You know, at the age he is now, 35, he's not going to be starting 46 Championship matches, is he? But he's still got enough quality to add something to this side, and that will probably come in the form of about 5 to 9 goals this season, I think. Next up, let's go for the return of the Mac, Stoke City's Tyrese Campbell. Now, from what I've been reading recently, I am led to believe that he's back now in full training with Stoke, and it should be just a matter of weeks before he is back. Now, last season he was absolutely prolific, and had he not got injured when he did, who knows, Stoke's season may have unfolded completely differently. But with this new system that they're now playing with, the extra quality that's going to be in and around him, you know, they won't be a one-man show with Campbell on the pitch anymore. But even with the game time he's missed so far, think he'll be putting up at least 10 to 14 goals this season. Next up, let's go for Swansea City's Joel Perrault. Now, the bad thing about Swansea at the moment is that they're not creating all too many chances and they're not having all too many shots. The good thing about them is that they have a pretty clinical striker playing up front, and that is Joel Perrault. He's already got 3 goals to his name so far this season. I was impressed with him when Swansea came to Deepdale. He took what was pretty much his only chance of that game, really. I think it's going to be double figures at least for him this season. I think that a lot of Swansea sort of attacking hopes probably will be pinned on him. Quite excited to see though a potential partnership forming between him and Obafemi, but for his goal output for the year, I think he's getting at least 10 to 14. And last but not least, let's go for West Brom's Callum Robinson. I've already spoken about him incredibly highly on the channel so far this season, and he's been on absolute fire. In the 4 games he's played, he's already scored 3 goals and got 1 assist to his name. Now, his role may slightly change in the side with Jordan Hugill coming in. You know, Robinson has been the man to players at number 9 so far this season, but maybe with Hugill's introduction, Robinson could be pushed onto the left, or maybe Hugill is just going to be that impact man off the bench. Regardless, Robinson is going to score a lot of goals this season and he's going to pick up a lot of assists. I want to back him for 20 goals plus, but I feel like maybe if he's playing a bit of the season on the left, you know, he's being moved around a little bit, I'll just play it safe and go under that, but I still think it'll be an incredibly good season for him. I'll go 15 to 19 goals. But guys, as you can see on screen there is 1 striker from every Championship club, and how many goals I realistically see them scoring this season. If you'd like to see me do a part 2 to this video where we pick out another striker from your guys' club, then get this video to 450 likes. Let me know down below what you make of all my selections, but apart from that, thanks for tuning in guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.